Hello. I just wanted to jump on here and do a quick video on what clays I use and how I got here, what lesson I learned the hard way to find out what clays work best for me. So I've been doing pottery for about 4.5 years now. And in the beginning, I used clays that were inexpensive and that were easy to work with. Those were kind of my only stipulations on what I needed in a clay. And throughout that process, I got to a point where people were asking for my pieces, and that's kind of how I got to selling. And then as I was selling, possibly I was too big for my britches for a little bit. Not exactly sure if that's the right term wording on how to describe that, but the lesson was that I had used a red clay, and it was actually, I'll just tell you, it was Laguna Hawaiian, I think, or something, and it was a really pretty red clay, but I did not know to look at the absorption rate on clays. It wasn't that I didn't care, it was that I didn't know I needed to care more. And so I had used that clay, and I had a customer that came back and she sent a picture of the clay, of the mug on a paper towel, and she goes, "This is seeping a lot, like leaking even." And so in my embarrassment, I told her, "Thank you for letting me know. Please give me a little bit of time. I will make you a new one." And so that kind of led me to testing out all of my clays. I wanted to know if all of them did the same thing, if there were issues with any other of the clays that I used. And there were a couple that had a few more issues, but sorry. But then after testing them, I discovered which clays were okay and which ones were not. I then was going into a deep dive of why that was happening, what I needed to know and learn about the clays. And that was when I learned about vitrification and about the absorption rate and everything else in clays. So from then on, that was maybe 1.5 years into my pottery journey that happened ish, maybe closer to 2 years. But so from then on, my goal was to only use clays with 1% or less absorption rate. And I believe that the factories, like if you're a mass producer and you sell it on the market in a big market way, I think it needs to be 0.5% or less. I may be wrong in that. It may need to be 0%. But I know it's very, very, very low. So that is why I started looking for clays that were 1% and less. So as for just regular stonewares, because I do love working with porcelain. I think that porcelain is beautiful, but it is more expensive. I think that's a pretty well known fact around the pottery world. And so I wanted to find a stoneware that was low absorption rate, that worked well for me, and even better if it didn't cost an arm and a leg, right? So I started using Laguna WC 609 and 610, depending on if my clay distributor that I get my clay from had what they had in stock. So Laguna 609 or 610 is this nice creamy white. It is less than 1% or 1% or less absorption rate. I have tested it. So whenever I get a new clay, I do not test it with every single mug or a piece that I make. But if I have a new piece that I just got out of the kiln or something like that with a clay I've never used, I do test it then. And as long as it passes, then I just kind of go with it. If there is an issue with another one after I've tested it, I kind of go off of the fact that there was an issue with that piece, not necessarily the clay, if that makes sense. So, but like I said, I have enjoyed working with a porcelain as well. And so this one is Laguna Frost. What I love about Laguna Frost is it is like one of the whitest porcelains that you can get, and also it's translucent. So this mug here is just clay with clear over it. So I'm going to show you, if you've seen some of my videos when I pull them out. I think that is downright amazing that you can literally see through the clay. And so I have made other pieces where they are like this and no handle, so it's truly more of a tea light type of piece. But I think that is so stunning and absolutely mind-blowing that you can see through clay, right? Isn't that so cool? But it is a pain to work with. It takes a lot of learning and figuring out the drying process, how to make it so that it doesn't dry and crack and everything else. So that is that. My distributor, Brackers, has recently started carrying, and by recently, I mean like in the last year or so, started carrying Kentucky Mud Works. And I am loving Kentucky Mud Works. So from what I have seen in the research that I have done, a lot of their clays are 1% or less in the absorption rate. And that being important to me, then I had a much wider variety to choose from. And so like this one is Big Turtle. I do like having a colored stoneware as well, just a tan, because well, it's just fun. I am a hobby potter, and so having variety and things to just kind of mess with, and it's fun. I really, really enjoy that. So I really like this one because, as you have seen if you're on my channel, you know that I also really enjoy using underglaze transfers. And so this, I could use pretty well any color of underglaze transfer on it, and it will pop. And that's so cool. Love it. Maybe not brown. Maybe you couldn't use brown on it, but white works, black works. I have a yellow daisy one that's really pretty. And so, yeah, you can use that. So that clay is amazing. And lastly, black clay. This is actually, technically it's brown bear. But I used to use Aardvark charcoal, and that clay has higher absorption rate for sure. I think it's like 3.2 or 3.4. I'm not sure exactly, but higher absorption rate. And not only that, it is so heavily grogged, and the manganese percentage that's in there, when you're done throwing with it, your hands are orange for like 4 or 5 days after. No matter how much you scrub, they're stained for a while. So this one, you also have to sand that one down so much because of the grog. So brown bear, I still do sand it down a lot, but it doesn't take nearly as much sanding, and so it's much quicker on the finishing process. And I really love these floating glazes on black clay. So that's kind of my story. While I was mortified that that happened to my customer and that it was my fault, that I didn't know, I'm also really, really grateful because it's a lesson that I didn't know I needed to learn. And it led me onto the quest of what clays to use, why I needed to use them. My kiln does fire hot. I do go to a cone 5-6, but it is hot, and it's oftentimes a little bit hotter than that. And so then there's other clays that don't like to go to 7, and there's times my kiln might be close to a cone 7. So there's that. I will say, if you're a new potter and you're trying to find what clays to use, I did use Laguna Beam Mix for a very short time. It was nice to throw with, it was nice to hand build with, it was just a really good clay, but the absorption rate on it is higher than what I would like. And that being said, I know a lot of people use it in mass production and never have a problem with it, but I did use it during a little time where I think that they had several bad batches and they were seeping a little bit more than what they used to in prior years, or prior batches, I guess I should say. I do think that they have that all sorted out and everything is fine with them. Like I said, I'm a big fan of the Laguna Frost, and I use Laguna WC 609 and 610. So I'm not bashing Laguna in the least bit. It's just, I do know I did not have good experiences with the B-Mix B5, I should say. No, B-Mix. But it's fine. I use their other clays and it's all good. So that's my short little story on how I learned what clays are important and how to get where I am comfortable with the clays that I use now. So that's all. That's my story. Thank you guys, and I appreciate you. God bless.